What's up, guys? I was just driving down the freeway here, headed north on I-5 out of Oceanside, California, and I was just thinking back through my memory bank of some of the first times I even came across a WESTY. Of course, these things have been around since the 70s, back in the what they call the T2 and the bay window days and the camper vans and stuff. But I guess the ones that always stuck in my mind was the Vanagon generation, which started in 1980 when they came out with that body style. And those are the Westfalias I always think about when I think of Westfalias. And there was a time I didn't think much about it. My buddy Brad, he's always been kind of the free spirit, free floating type of dude. And I remember him back in the day when we were friends, younger, our early 20s. He was talking about wanting to get a van. And I always kind of gave him a hard time, thinking, yeah, you're just a hippie wanting a hippie van. But he had something about it. And, I got into photography, and photography taught me so much about life. It's kind of weird. I mean, it taught me a lot about passion. It made me realize what passion was about, because as soon as I picked up the camera and took a few pictures, I realized that photography would take me somewhere. And it taught me the appreciation for the beauty in this world, the natural beauty, man-made beauty, whatever it may be. And photography really made me want to get out and shoot photos and travel and see all the amazing places. And it just taught me so much appreciation for that. And I think the biggest thing is it made me want to travel. And of course, then you start thinking of road trips and going here and going there, and you do a lot of studying on the internet as far as cool places to go, and looking at other people's photography and studying it and learning the hot spots of photography. And you start realizing what a huge world it is and all the places to go see. And so, like I said, with that comes the desire to do road trips. And I was with some friends over on the Olympic Peninsula in Washington, actually shooting some photos. And we were at a camp spot at La Push, which is a big, huge, popular spot now because of all the Twilight movies and werewolves and vampires. So anyways, we were camped there at La Push, and in the campground there was a Volkswagen Westfalia set up there with the top popped up, and there was an older couple camping out of it. And I walked by that thing 3 or 4 times, and every time I walked by it, I was just like, wow, that is so cool. Like, that's like perfect for what I need to do what I want to do with my photography, and being able to do a road trip easily. And so I walked by that thing numerous other times and kept thinking about it. And on the way back from there, we in Port Angeles, Washington, we actually ran into a shop that kind of specialized in Westfalias, and so we stopped and looked at them, and I was like blown away by the price tag on them, and I was like, well, yeah, I don't know, but that started my desire for wanting one. And I hit the pavement hard as far as looking for one and studying them and figuring out what they're all about. And it was a year later, almost exactly a year later, that I ended up with my first Westfalia. And so that was cool to see that come into fruition, and have myself finally a road trip machine. And boy, once you get these things and you get it sitting in your driveway and you sit in it and you think of all the places you can go with it, and you start thinking of all the survival tools that you can put in this rig, and make yourself a little overland expedition rig and a little survival rig, all of a sudden it's like being a little kid again and playing, building a fort, or, playing army. And, as a little kid, that's what it reminded me of. And so many times I feel like this is my little fort on wheels. And I don't know, maybe that's just part of the cool thing about owning a Westfalia, is it makes me feel like I'm playing fort as a kid again. That's pretty funny, actually. But yeah, these rigs are just awesome. And I've really just don't have to worry about that anymore, and I can just enjoy it for what it is. And yeah, I don't have to worry about my Ford breaking down on the side of the road for a while. Knock on wood, I always do that. But yeah, you know, so I bought my Westfalia with the idea of having a road trip machine for doing photography. That was always my goal, and little did I know, I never thought, you know, that, well, let's see, I guess probably 4 months after I bought this thing, I never thought that I'd be living in it. And one day, when it came down to finding out that my career, the company that I'd been working for, the construction equipment rental business, was possibly going to be closing their doors, light bulbs started going off, switches started flipping, like, okay, if this business shuts down, this is my opportunity to get out of a career that I've been doing for 18 years, and it's an opportunity to start doing what I really want to do, which was photography. And so I started figuring out, okay, how can I do this? I need to cut my overhead down. I got to be able to figure out how to survive without having to make that house payment, because that was the only thing keeping me towards a full-time job, was how to survive and make that house payment or rent payment or whatever it may be. And so I think it was my mom at one point said, well, you know, because my dad was working in the same industry, the same business as I was, so they were up against the same issues, and we had been talking about wanting to do traveling and stuff like that. They wanted to go off and do it, and I wanted to go off and do it. And so we'd been talking about it, you know, just as a group. And my mom was like, well, why don't you live in your van? And at first I like threw my hands up. I'm like, I can't do that. How am I going to do that? I got 2 kids. You know, I've got all this stuff. Like, I've got a house full of stuff. Like, what do you mean I can't live in my van? That's impossible. But I tell you what, I thought about it for even just a few minutes. And I stopped and I thought about it and really turned it over in my head. Man, could I do this? And I was just kind of frozen there, just like thinking. My mind was like gone somewhere else, and I was just thinking like, wow, okay, all right, okay, I could see this maybe working. And it was like that. Like, I made that decision that night, and I had actually put a deposit down on an apartment to move into. This was before I found out that my job was going to be coming to an end with this company. I had put a $1,000 deposit down on an apartment in town, and in fact I was supposed to move in the next day, and that night I had that discussion of living in my van. And right that night I decided to pull the plug on the apartment and decide that I was going to live in my van. And the initial idea at that point was, okay, I'm going to live in my van, I'm going to go find an RV spot in town, and I'll set up my van there. That'll be my home base, and then I've got my Volkswagen Rabbit that I can just commute back and forth to work in. So I was just going to live in an RV park. Okay, that's cool. So I go and start researching the RV parks, and in the wintertime months, to get a spot in an RV park, it was like $450 a month. And I was like, that's completely, but that goes against my ideas of why I even want to live in a van. And so I had to, you know, it didn't make sense. I could go find a roommate and live with a roommate in a nice house for that price. And I needed to cut that down even more. And at that point, I just had to throw my helping me move all weekend, and that's just where I landed. So the first night that I lived in my van, I was sleeping in the parking lot at his apartment complex, and I remember laying in bed thinking to myself, wow, what am I doing? Like normally I am on a Sunday laying in bed, kicking back to a DVD, preparing for my work week that's coming up. But no, here I was laying in my van because I decided to live in it, and I had my whole life in front of me. I didn't know if living in my van was going to last a day, a night, a week, a month, a year, my whole lifetime. I didn't know. I just went into it not even knowing what was around the next corner. And I tell you what, it was scary, but I knew that I would find my comfort zone eventually. And so I kept at it, and within a few days, I was actually starting to enjoy it. Figure out all the fun little things and tweaking everything, making it feel at home. And it's really crazy to think back to 2 years ago and look where I'm at now, and like it's so second nature, and I love it so much. I couldn't imagine doing anything different. And I think the thing is I did this because of a dream that I had. Like I'm chasing a dream. If I was doing it because I couldn't afford it, I couldn't afford any other life, and I was forced to live in my van, and I'm just, bumming out in town, like, I don't know what I would do. It would be a whole different story. But it's this dream that I keep in front of me that keeps me going to live in this van day in and day out. And that's what makes it fun and exciting is seeing this dream come true. And to go back and look at when I was a little kid and I would go to my first motocross race, and I just remember, like, here's these guys like racing these motorcycles, and I just remember looking up to them thinking, like, this is the coolest thing in the world. And that's always played in the back of my mind throughout, racing BMX and racing motocross, picking up a camera and shooting my first photo of motocross, and then getting the idea in my head, like, wow, I should see what I can do to shoot Supercross. Finding myself on the floor of the very first Supercross race ever, and then next thing I know, I'm working with the best riders in the world and working for the biggest motocross magazine in the world, and just like really excited about all these dreams coming true. And if I wasn't out chasing those dreams, living in my van would be a different situation. But so I'm thankful for the dreams that I've had. I'm thankful for living in a van because it's given me those dreams. And I'm just thankful that Volkswagen set up and designed this Westfalia, because it's just awesome. So anyways, that's kind of my story of how I chased all this stuff. I know I talk about it in different capacities, and each one is a little different trail that I talk about, but I think I always talk about the same stuff. But I don't know. It's pretty crazy to look back and think, and I don't know if it's because my trip down here in California is starting to wind down and I'm just looking back and reflecting or whatever. I don't know, but it is what it is. So anyways, I hope you guys can make sense of this story, and hopefully it gives light to other people's situation. And I think, again, I just want to reiterate on the whole family thing. Don't let having a family make you feel like you can't go out and chase your dreams. If anything, you should be thankful that you've got that family on your team to help encourage you. I mean, I couldn't do what I do without all my friends and family back home, like, encouraging me to do it. So get your family on your side of your team, and you guys accomplish dreams together. Doesn't mean that one person needs to run off and do something all by themselves. Do it as a family. It might be a little bit of a slower road, but you can still get there. That's for darn sure. So anyways, I gotta jump off the freeway here. It was good talking to you guys. A little bit of a long-winded video, but hopefully it's worth it. I really hope so. I just like putting my story out there in hopes of encouraging other people to be able to do it. Life's too short. short not to be doing something you don't love. Or life's too short not to be doing something you love. So get out there and do it. Peace out and keep on trucking. You guys take care.